Before we do anything, I'm gonna set up something that will prevent a lot of problems. This right here is the mimic, the endoskeleton. And this is the mimic, the story. I can't call them both the mimic or else it'll get really confusing really fast. So, I'm going to refer to the endoskeleton as the mimic, and the story as just TM. That way you'll know which one I'm talking about. After seeing the new trailer for Secret of the Mimic and looking back at TM, it's clear that a lot happened in between that story and the game. At first, I thought that Steel Wool just didn't read the story. There are a lot of inconsistencies after all. The warehouse is way bigger. The Mimic wasn't designed to fit into any costume when Edwin built it for David, and Edwin was specifically stated to not make the costumes. But here we see a costume based on his son's toy, as well as the whole place being named Murray's Costume Manor. But then, after reading the storyteller again, I realized that a lot of the things I wrote off as errors in that story actually connect really closely to what we've seen of Secret of the Mimic. In TM, it seemed like Edwin ran off right after beating up the Mimic, and Fazbear Entertainment discovered the animatronic in his absence. But in the storyteller, when the Mimic 1 program takes over the Pizzaplex, we're told that this isn't the first time Edwin has witnessed the Mimic taking over a Fazbear Entertainment establishment. What he had hoped he wouldn't find was right there on the start screen. The storyteller was running a program called Mimic 1. No, Edwin whispered. His worst fears were confirmed. He'd known it. He'd tried to pretend he hadn't known it, but he'd known it. He'd known it from the very beginning. No wonder the Pizzaplex characters were changing. No wonder problems were cropping up all over. It was happening again, and Edwin had no idea what to do about it. Happening again. So then what happened between TM and the storyteller? Or, more accurately, what happened in between the first half of TM about Edwin losing David and beating up the Mimic, and the second half about the Fazbear Entertainment employees sent in to clean up the mess after Edwin ran away. In TM, we're told Edwin was trapped in a life he didn't want to live, and he was doing projects he never in a million years thought he'd be working on. He was turning weird creature costumes into entertaining robots, for heaven's sake. What was useful about that? But in the storyteller, Edwin says, I can tell you from years of experience that without the stories, all your hardware and software would be nothing more than lumps of metal and wires, and a meaningless mass of zeros and ones. Story drives Fazbear Entertainment. This attitude is also seen when Edwin takes a walk through the Pizzaplex. At its busiest, the Pizzaplex was packed with spun-up kids and jovial families, and all the happy screams and shouts and chatter was like an electrical circuit that, if it could have been harnessed, probably would have generated enough power to run a dozen Pizzaplexes. Scanning the boisterous crowd, he idly wondered how it might be possible to channel human joy into a machine. It had to be possible, he mused. This leads me to believe that after Edwin beat up the Mimic, he realized he needed a change of attitude, and so he decided to work to make things that would bring people joy. I think that first he made the tiger mascot himself as a way of coping with what happened. It would keep the memory of David alive by bringing joy to other children. But then he took it a bit further than that. He sunk deep into his work, joining forces with Fazbear Entertainment to expand the workshop into Murray's Costume Manor, which sold toys, held performances, and gave tours. We see the toy shop in the Help Wanted 2 update, and we can see a Big Top and Welcome show in the building. Fazbear Entertainment also convinced him to turn the Mimic into something that could fit in any costume, hence that functionality being referenced in the Secret of the Mimic trailer, despite it not yet existing when Edwin originally built the Mimic, and none of the team sent to retrieve stuff having survived to tell about it.
It's a kind of prototype endoskeleton that can adapt to any costume and become any character.
But unfortunately, something went so wrong. The Mimic took over the Helper system, just like he would later do with Helpy and Ruin in Help 1 and 2. This way, he was not only able to hop into any suit, but also infect all the animatronics and tech in the building, like Jackie, Dolly, and Music Man. That's what the storyteller was talking about when it said, "It was happening again," in reference to the Mimic 1 program taking over the Pizzaplex. It's also why Edwin was so certain from the start that an AI taking over the Pizzaplex would have fatal consequences. Right off the top of his head, Edwin could think of a dozen ways the storyteller could go wrong. If he had any hope of preventing a tragedy, he had to keep it together. This all culminated in a horrific disaster, with at the very least the tiger mascot killing someone. That's why when Edwin enters the storyteller tree, he's careful to make sure that the tiger bust can't attack him. Was the tiger movable? Was it designed to be mobile? No, the tiger was stationary. It wouldn't suddenly come to life and attack. The description for Secret of the Mimic says, "Unravel the mystery left behind by the reclusive inventor Edwin Murray." And since we already know how the Mimic was created and what led it to become a killer, I think what I just laid out is the basics of what this mystery will be. I'm sure there'll be more to it than what I said, but it would be impossible to figure out the specifics with what little we have to go off of. In the end, I guess the lesson here is that I need to stop writing things off as inconsistencies. Looks like my next theory is going to be about how William Afton got his left hand back in The Man in Room 1280.
I always come back.